What's up everyone? So today we have a very exciting video. I got my GaleSpeed wheels here and we will mount all the goodies that I've received over the last few weeks. I got some new sprockets, some new rotors, some new valve stems. The tires are in as well. So I'll get some Michelin EVO tires mounted on these wheels. And once all of this is done, we'll put this on the bike and see how it looks. So let's do this. Alright guys, so welcome back. This is the rear wheel here. We'll get going on the front wheel in a few minutes. But basically, these are the GaleSpeed GP1S from Active Company in Japan. I ordered this a couple of months ago directly from WeBike in Japan, received them, but after that it took a bit of time because the sprocket size is very unique, so I had to find some sprockets. It took a bit of time because I ordered them from the UK and finally got them. And I was also missing the tires because I live in Canada and I couldn't get slicks in the winter time shipped to me. So I finally got all the parts together and now we are all set to start the installation process. The rear wheel is 10.4 pounds. The front wheel is 7.2 pounds. And this is with all the hardware that comes with it. So in this case, for the rear wheel, it also includes the sprocket carrier and the bolts for the disc as well. So super light. And this will result into better handling for the bike because it will reduce the unsprung weight. It will also reduce the rotational mass of the wheels as well. So in terms of specifications for those wheels, the center hole for the wheel here in the back is 80 millimeters, and the PCD, or the pitch circle diameter, for the 6-bolt pattern is 100 millimeters. And in order to calculate this, normally you can just simply measure the diameter of one stud and measure the distance between the two studs. So in this case, if I measure from the outside of one stud to the outside of the other stud, it will result into a distance of 59 millimeter. If I take the width of the stud by itself, it's 9 millimeters. So normally if you divide by 2, it's 4.5. So the middle of each of these studs will be 59 minus 4.5 minus 4.5, which is 50. So 50 millimeter divided by 0.5 will give you the PCD. And you divide by 0.5 only if you have a 6-bolt pattern. If you have a 5-bolt pattern, then the division will be by 0.5878. And that will give you your PCD. So this is really important because this is how you will fit your sprockets onto the sprocket carriers. So before I start, I'll go over some of the details of the components I purchased to mount on the wheels as well. Let's talk about sprockets for a few minutes. The most challenging part about these wheels is to find a sprocket that will fit properly. In my case, I have a 415 chain that I wanted to fit with this. So I had to do a lot of research and a lot of emailings and calling in order to find this. Let me introduce you to B&C Express in the UK. These guys are phenomenal. So they were able to help me out with this. I basically just emailed them and I said, listen guys, I'm looking for some 415 sprockets with the 100 PCD and the 80 millimeter center. And I need this for a 415 chain. They responded almost instantly and they said, yes, we can help you out. We have some blank 420s that we can convert to 415. The reason why this conversion is possible is, first of all, the pitch of the 420 chain and the 415 chains are the same. It's half an inch. So the second variable that you need to consider when you're doing the 420 to 415 conversion like this is the diameter of the roller. So between the 420 and the 415, the roller diameter has a delta of 0.02 millimeter between the two sizes. So it's going to be a non-issue in this case. So that 0.02 millimeter is negligible and won't impact the performance on that sprocket or the chain itself. The last thing that you need to consider, and this is usually where it's a bit more work, is that when you go from the 420 to the 415 chain size or sprocket size, you need to thin this out by 1/16 of an inch. So this is exactly what the folks at B&C did here. You can see there's a little groove around here. So that's the extra 1/16 that's been shaved from this sprocket in order for this to work properly with my 415 chain. So the back of the sprocket has remained untouched or unchanged. That was the datum or the point of reference. They only narrowed down from the top towards the back. So now this is 3/16. So all of this to say that if you go from a 420 sprocket to a 415 sprockets, it should be close enough that it won't impact the overall performance. So in this case, I got two sprockets. I got the black one, which is alloy, and it's been anodized in black. This is a 55 teeth, and I also have the 57 teeth, which is again alloy and anodized in red for this one. So that's what I will be mounting on my sprocket carrier. So I'll also be installing this beautiful piece of equipment here. So this is the Norton Racing lightweight brake rotor. This thing weighs 11.3 ounces. It's gonna shave a pound from your OEM disc rotor on the bike. So again, it will be a big difference. It will reduce the rotational mass or the unsprung weight on your bike by quite a bit as well. So that will be mounted on the rear wheel, obviously. And the other thing that I have as well for the front wheel is the Galfer wave rotor. So that will be mounted on the front wheel. And finally, I can't forget about this. These are the Bridgeport angle valves. So these valves are amazing because if you've ever had to inflate tires on a motorcycle, it's always a pain in the you know what, because now you have to try to just put your air chuck on top and like try to align it properly. So by having the angle valve stems, I'll be able to point it towards the outside of the bike, and it's going to be a lot easier to inflate or measure the pressure in the tires. So that will be mounted on those as well. Well, I'll be mounting these instead of what GaleSpeed provided with the wheels. So here you have it, guys. These are the goodies that will be mounted on these wheels, and once all of this is done, I'll bring them in tomorrow to get the tires mounted as well. So let's start. All right, so I'll start by installing these valve stems. And when installing these, what you want to do is make sure that you point it out on the opposite side of the chain. So you don't want this to be towards the chain or the kickstand. You want this to be on the other side. And it's definitely going to make your life easier when you're trying to add some air or measure the PSI in your tires. So what we're going to do here is just basically unscrew that little nut. And once this is done, you can see there's a little rubber seal here that will seal everything up. And I'll just insert this in the rim. And after that, before I put the nut back on, we'll put some red Loctite on top of this to make sure that it stays nice and solid. The nice thing about these wheels is that there's a little flat spot where you can mount the stem properly. So now that the stem is there, I will just put this flat here again and make sure it's properly aligned. And I'll just take a bit of Loctite. And the Loctite comes with the stems, so I'm not sure if it's supplied by Bridgeport. In my case, I ordered these valve stems from curvygirl.com, so this is where I got the valve stems. So I'm not sure if they are sending the Loctite or not, but it comes with it. So I stand corrected. I thought it was going to be red Loctite. It is blue Loctite. So I'm going to use blue Loctite and not the red Loctite. So keep that in mind. So we'll just put a bit of blue Loctite on those threads. And once this is done, we'll just simply insert the valve into that hole in the rim. And so the recommendations, the torque recommendations for this are between 7 and 10 nanometer. So it doesn't have to be super crazy tight. I'm using a deep socket here. It's a 12 millimeter deep socket. And I'm just going to tighten this until I got some resistance, and I'll give it just an extra little ump, and that's going to be it. So this is the sprocket carrier, and I've double checked, make sure that everything was tight, nice and tight. Basically, you just take an Allen wrench, and I've tightened everything to spec. Everything is nice and solid, so I didn't have to do anything else. I mean, I just double checked it, but it was tight enough. So basically what's going to happen is that you're going to sit the top of these nuts into these holes here, and we'll just press it in place, and after that I'll assemble the sprocket. So I'm struggling a little bit because it's super tight. When I put this part in the wheel assembly here, it doesn't slide in. You know, I just thought it would slide in. It would be fairly easy, but it's super tight. I've tried the rubber mallet. I've also tried to put a little bit of grease, see if the grease would help, but I still can't easily push this all the way through. And it looks like two of the holes are super tight. So the two holes on this side look very tight. So I'm wondering if that's a problem, or if it's a problem of alignment. But I'm really struggling, and I really don't want to damage it. So I'm gonna try something different here, and I think I'm just gonna eat it up and see if the heat might be, might help with the expansion of these rubber sleeves here, and if so, maybe it's gonna be easier to get in after that. So that's interesting because I got one of these metal spacer that stayed on the bolt. It was so tight that it stayed right there. Alright, so I've been messing around for a bit now, and I realized that one of these cush drive or these spacers is probably a bit smaller than the other one, because if I take any of the other bolts and I just try to slide it on, they all slide with absolutely no problem at all. It's a bit tight, but I mean they all fit relatively well. So I tried this in all the various spacers or cush drives here, or bumper, whatever you want to call them, and they all fit very well. Again, I mean, when I say very well, I mean they all fit tight, very tight. But this one here, the metal ring came out, and whenever I try to insert this on any of the bolts here, it just won't go in. And I've tried with grease. I've tried to warm it up a bit as well, and nothing is working. So now I'm gonna heat it up quite a bit and try to push it on with a lot of grease, and then we'll put everything back in place. So I'll get everything ready now so that when we have the remaining one that's really stubborn and it's odd, and if it fits, then I'll slide everything on the wheel and we'll hope for the best. I'm a bit shocked, to be honest. I was expecting that for a set of wheels of that price it would be a better fit, but I guess that's part of the motorcycle world. There's always some surprises. There we go. So this one is in. So I'll let it cool down for a bit because I don't want to melt the rubber. Alright, so it looks like it cooled down enough now so that we can continue the process, hopefully without any glitches. So you can see I've also put a bit of grease everywhere. If there's ever any rust or anything that tries to infiltrate, at least the grease will keep it in a better shape. So we want to have this stud here with the ring around it on this cush drive here. So we're going to line this up and hopefully it will go in without too much of a fight this time. Alright, so now it sits okay all around. So we now have the sprocket carrier installed and ready to receive the actual sprocket. I'd be lying if I was to tell you that I was expecting to have that type of issue with something so simple as that. There we go. So sprocket will go in here, and this is perfect fit. So now we'll just put these nylock. Okay, so I put the nylock nuts on. They haven't been secured or tightened yet. What you need for this is a 14mm socket. Alright, so we'll secure everything at 58 nanometer and we'll do a crisscross pattern. Alright, so now we can install the rotor. And for the rotor, the torque specs that I'm going to use will be 23 nanometer. And these are the specs, the torque specs from Yamaha for the rear rotor, but I'm assuming it's going to be very similar. So if you, like, I'm not going to measure it, I'll just eyeball it, but if you need the exact torque specs, it's 23 nanometer. And I'm going to put some red Loctite as well. And these bolts, by the way, come with the wheels, so no need to buy extra wheel or extra nuts. So when you're tightening these, just make sure that your wrench or your X key is fully seated before you start turning, so that you don't strip these bolts. And that's it for now. So the rear wheel is fully assembled. I think it looks very sharp. Has a really nice look to it. It's kind of surprising that GaleSpeed didn't have this part in black as opposed to gray, but hey, not too many people will see this on the bike anyway. And the other side, it looks very clean as well. So the nice thing about this as well is that your spacers now won't fall off. Your spacers are fully integrated into the wheel itself, so that's definitely a bonus too. So now we're just going to start working on the front wheel and assemble the disc rotor. The valve stem has been installed on the front wheel, and I'll install the front rotor on the wheel as well. So same concept as the rear rotor. The torque spec for this, I'm going to use the same torque spec that Yamaha provides for the R3. So I'll torque this at 23 nanometer for the 5 bolts holding that disc in place. I don't think there's anything specific in the instruction guide that I don't know already, but I'll still take a quick peek before we install everything. All right. So we'll center this properly. Make sure that the writing is on the outside or facing out. And I will put some red Loctite on these 5 bolts as well. So we're going to use the torque wrench for this, 23 nanometer. Make sure that you have the right measurement unit and you're set up to the right amount of torque. All right, so front wheel is done as well. So now the next step will be to bring this to my local shop tomorrow and get the tires mounted. I got the wheels back, guys, and they look phenomenal. So this is the Michelin Power Cup EVO, and I just got the tires mounted at my local shop, and they said that to balance them was very easy. There's only one small 7-gram weight that was added on the tire or the rim, very minimal in terms of weight. And you can see here the size, the 110/70/17 for the front and the 140/70/17 for the back. So I've chose the Michelin EVO Power Cup because I've had them on my R6 last summer and I really like them. They work like a charm. So they are the threaded version of the Power Slicks. So there's less than 5% of the contact patch that has some grooves in it. Because they have grooves, they are also street legal. So you could, in theory, use these tires to ride on the street. The reason why I really like those as well is that because if it's raining while you're on the track, you can still finish your session with no issues because of these small grooves. And you can also go out after a bit of rain and they will behave much better than a set of slicks. So that's one of the reasons why I love these so much. In my opinion, the adherence is awesome on these tires and they provide really good feedback as well. They have a really short warm-up time. So normally after 1 lap or 1.5 lap, the tires will get to operating temperature even without the tire warmers. All right, that's enough about tires. I can probably dedicate a full episode just talking about these tires, but we'll do this another time. So overall, I'm super happy with the wheels and all the hardware that I've mounted on these wheels. I think they look very, very sweet. And I also really like the fact that I won't have to change the spacers because the spacers are incorporated into the wheel assembly itself. So that's another bonus as well. So that will definitely make my life easier when swapping rims at the track. All right, guys, that's a wrap for today. So hopefully the video was helpful. If it was, please smash that like button. If you have any comments or feedbacks or questions, please post them below or send me a note. I'd be happy to hear your feedback and your comments. Until then, stay safe, ride safe, and we'll see you soon. Cheers.